Hi, I'm Phil Bainbridge, and this is a quick tutorial video for the blog post to remove file access via web app. So ultimately what we're wanting to do here is, instead of trying to remove edit access to a Google Sheet in this instance via app script code that an individual will be running themselves, because in the example I had, they were also sending automated emails, we're going to remove the access via them clicking a hyperlink in the Google Sheet and that task going to a web app. The reason for this is if you try to remove access to a file that's currently running AppScript code as an individual, you quite typically end up with an error message at the end of it, or you certainly can't cleanly end the code. So we're going to do this via a web app instead. So I've already made a copy of the two files linked to in the blog post. What we've got first of all then is an example Google Sheet. Now I've stripped away all of the extra formatting and details because in reality, this was quite a fully documented Google form with questions and answers and a button at the bottom of this, but I've stripped it away just so we can learn about the code that we need to do the straightforward task. Now, as you can see, this has got an on open. The first time I'm opening the Google Sheet, it's probably just going to take a little bit longer to appear. But then there's some AppScript code in the background that is creating a hyperlink. At this point in time, an unfinished hyperlink. So if we go into the AppScript code, you'll see we've got the on open here, which means this code runs each time the Google Sheet is opened. And we've got our information and everything is set up that is designed to create the hyperlink for the Google Sheet and put the ID, the file ID, into that hyperlink as well, so that we can pass it into the web app, which will then be able to figure out which user we need to remove from which file. So all we need to fill in here is the web app URL. So let's see how we generate that. So if we go back into our Google Drive folder, I have a standalone AppScript file here, which we're going to make as our web app. So if I open this, we've got our do-get event. That's what's going to trigger when we want to pass some information to it. And the event is going to contain our URL with items such as our file ID. So there is nothing to complete here. It's already kind of mocked up. All we need to do is publish it as a web app. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go up to deploy at the top right, and we're going to go to new deployment. Now, you can put a description in here if you want to. I've already got the type as web app here on the left-hand side. You can use the cog icon if that isn't displaying to make a change. I want the web app to execute as me. Basically, in the circumstance that I've got in this workspace, this account is always going to have access to the files on a shared drive or on a Google Drive. So whilst the user themselves is only accessing it when it's generated from a Google form, I want to take their access off, but leave access to another special kind of admin account I've got. Therefore, I want my web app to run as that account so it retains access. I can't have it running as the individual, basically. Otherwise, everybody will need access to the web app. So we just want to keep it straightforward. In terms of literally being able to access the web app and click it, I'm just going to select that and change it to anyone. So that means anybody can access it to be able to perform this function of removing themselves from a file. So that's all we want. I'm going to click on deploy. There's a slight delay with this bit, as I say, because it's a brand new file. It's the first time we're running it. But what's going to happen next is it's going to want me to authorize the web app. That means connect it to my Google account and make sure it's happy to run. I'm just going to pause the video for a moment whilst I do that. Okay, so now that we've authorized that, we get this pop-up here. And what we want to do is grab that really long URL there, because that's what's going to go into our Google Sheet. So I'm just going to click the copy button, and I'm going to go back into the AppScript code for our Google Sheet, and I'm going to paste that in between the double quote marks, like so. Now remember, ultimately, this file will be a template file, so it's going to be copied every time somebody fills in a Google form. So once we would save this here, it would be part of our template. So each time the Google form was submitted, for instance, a copy of this file will be made and it will already include this. So it keeps everything going for future. So I'm just going to hit save. And that's it in terms of the configuration. So all you need to bear in mind now is the onOpen function already ran when we opened this Google Sheet, which means it's got an invalid or incorrect URL here. It's not got the one to our web app. There's a couple of ways you can update this, trigger it. All I'm going to basically do is I'm going to delete the contents of that cell. And because it's on open, all I need to do is if I refresh the page, the Google Sheet will load, the app script will kick in, it will see that that cell is empty and will create our new URL in there like that. And that's it, that's all we need. So all the user has to do now is click on that, and they will then be taken to a very simple HTML page which confirms for us the file ID, and it pulls through the name of the file and tells them that their permissions has been removed. And that's it. All they can do after that is close that and close the file, and we've removed access via web app. Thank you very much.